Hello, this is Redwind,
This is Honora.
and this is the beginning of a tutorial series about a game called Override Mech City Brawl.
Best PS4 game to date.
Well, currently it's not very popular online because most people are finding it kind of monotone, but we're kind of hoping to show through this series how it isn't.
Before going into this series, you should already know the basic controls, how to punch, kick, dash, shield, jump, use a power, pick up items, etc. It's pretty basic stuff. You can learn it all in the tutorial. This is for a little bit more advanced stuff. We're going to turn the time limit off.
Well, actually, no, we need it on so that we can have the blue circle.
No, it'll still come down after 2.5 minutes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because it didn't in training. Okay, cool.
So, yeah, we're gonna play as Shifu and Watchbot just because they're really basic. They will give a pretty good indication of how the average mech works. And we're gonna play on Brazil because it's just the most unique map.
The first few videos, not quite sure how many at this point, are all about maneuvering because that's the most important part of the game because it's involved in every other section. And this video is going to be about Overheat specifically because it's involved in every other part of maneuvering. Perfectly got one of these blue.
If you look at the bars on my screen, there are 3 of them. I'm over here on the left. Hello, I'm Shifu. Honora, it says Honora at the top. There are 3 bars. There's the long blue bar, and there's the small bar chopped into 4 pieces, and there's the empty bar next to it. The empty bar is my overheat bar. And as you can see, when I take an action other than just walking, the overheat bar fills up a little bit and then it drains back down. If you fill it up all the way, you overheat, and then you can't take any of those actions. I was just spamming the controller and nothing happened. You can only walk because walking is all you can do. Pretty much any action that you take other than walking and holding a shield while not getting hit, like Redwind is right there, will increase your health bar. Your overheat bar. So as I punch, it increases my overheat bar and goes back down. Redwind, he is shielding, and when he gets hit, it'll increase his overheat.
And it does actually go back down very slowly, so it won't make that big of a difference if they are constantly attacking you. Also, one thing to note that I never noticed this before, but you do actually take damage when you're shielding. If you look at my bar, it's down a little bit.
Yeah. Both the amount that he has taken and when he overheats, he loses his shield. But the amount that he was losing his overheat and the amount of health that he lost is negligible. So we're going to start off with this here, view lock. There will be a later episode about view lock itself, but if you toggle R3, which would be pushing in the right stick for anybody who is unfamiliar with that, it'll toggle whether or not your view is centered on the person. As you see, my view is centered. Wherever I move, I'm always looking right at Redwind. But otherwise, if I have it off, I can look anywhere. If I dash around, can you see how much, look at my overheat bar and see how much it increases it.
It's the same every time.
Whichever direction I go. If I lock in on him, it's the same all the time. It just goes back and it goes up by a certain amount. Whoops, I'm gonna fall there. Actually, it's gonna take an embarrassingly long amount of time to get back up there. But if I dash straight at him while view lock is on, it goes up by half. And that can be pretty important if you're just trying to get to somebody. Or trying to get past the person, even if you're not intending to fight them, it'll help your overheat stay down. And keeping your overheat down is important. Redwind, if you talk about why you want your overheat low.
In what way? Like, I mean...
In general. Like, why do you not want your overheat to be high?
Okay, well, for one thing, when you overheat, as we've said before, the only thing you can do is walk around, which gives them ample time to do anything. They can move in on you, or they can move around. Look at weapons. It's always dangerous to take off your view lock, but that kind of gives them a chance when you overheat to do that and take a look around. But I mean, for other reasons, it's like when your overheat is high, even if you aren't overheated yet, your opponent can act on that, and even just coming towards you, you're like, well, okay, if they don't hit me, then I'm fine, right? Well, no, because when you're dashing away, you're going to overheat yourself. Basically, overheating, it's it's something you have to be so careful about. You can't just spam the dash button, because doing that, and you can't just spam your arms and stuff too, because you might hit them. You more want to plan out everything you're doing before you move in. You want to dash as few times as possible, and you can actually work on that by sprinting, which is right after you dash. You just keep pushing forwards, and if you don't turn too much, you'll keep sprinting.
It will stop your overheat from going down though.
Yeah, it'll stay
And
where
it
it
keeps
is.
you running in a straight line, making you predictable. But it's better than nothing.
Yeah, but you wanna dash as few times as possible, and you want to hit as few times as possible, really.
But you want to deal as much damage as possible. So it's all
Yeah.
about maximizing damage in a small number of actions.
But overheating is probably the worst thing that can happen to you, because even though technically getting hit by the grenade launcher or something is like one of the worst things that can happen to you, it's easier for that to happen when you're overheating.
And the other person doesn't usually have an easy opportunity to pick up a grenade launcher unless you're incapacitated in some way.
Yeah,
Because
so overheating basically gives your opponent so many options, and it gives you 0. So,
technically it gives you 1.
well, yes, because moving, but that means you actually have no options. You can only do that.
Yeah. So you can just, once you, as you maybe noticed, because I got a kind of a head start on him with this grenade launcher, he's out of it now because I didn't keep pressing him. But as soon as I hit him once, it's pretty easy to just keep a chain of hitting him with this weapon,
But it has such a short range, if I can...
Yeah. But that happens pretty easily if you've been overheated. And it's really important to always leave yourself an avenue out of a combat. For example, if I want to dash in on him and hit him with a kick and then punch at him a couple times, but then I dash away and I overheat myself, then if we were actually in a match, he would have been right on top of me. But he's kind of relaxed right now because we're not fighting each other, really. But if I go in and just punch twice, oh, it messed up. Now I'm going to get myself away with 2 dashes. There's not really a whole lot he can do because I left myself ample room. Even if I did overheat, he wasn't going to be able to get close enough to hit me. Alternatively, I could have just dashed away once, been closer to him, but not been overheated. It's like you leave yourself a lot more options when you don't put yourself in danger of overheating as much. So then, next to talk about is the powers. So the bar with all 4, divided into 4 pieces. I'm sure you know, if you already know the basic things needed to play this game, is there's a power bar, and each mech has their own powers. For example, and you should already know how to use those. Here, I'll use one of mine. Oh, well, this is a better one. I can jump myself up into the air like this, okay? It's really important to note, and you should do these now because, like maybe your jumping thingy. Is look at his overheat bar. It does not fill up when he does that, okay? And that's, you might think like, oh well, that's kind of convenient, but not really that important. Well, yeah, sure. But if he overheats himself while attacking me, but he has a power, then he can use something that I need to react to, something like that. I probably wouldn't have been hit by that in an actual game, but I would have had to dodge it, and then he would have been able to get away because I wouldn't have been able to keep on pressing in to attack him. It's really important that powers don't use overheat. Like if I overheated while attacking him and I wanted to get away, I could just shoot myself up into the air and my overheat will be down by the time I land. So it's an easy way to get away from a situation using powers. And it's also really helpful because once the other person sees you overheating, you know they're going to come running in to attack you. So they're pretty predictable in where they're going to be in the near future.
Here, you can have this thing for a second if you want to hit me.
Here, I was getting enough powers from you hitting me anyways.
Okay.
But I'll pick it up, sure.
Yeah, that sword gives us powers when we hit the other person.
Yeah. Should be about out of swings now, probably 1 or 2 left. And then last thing would be shielding. So shielding, as we mentioned before, drop that real quick so just in case it does. Okay, can't see. Okay, so shielding, as we mentioned before, fills up your overheat here.
Only when you're getting hit.
But if you find an actual shield, like an item drop, which I don't see any around right now. If you find a shield that drops as an item, like the one that I have in my hand here, or the one that Redwind is holding in his hand, I'll talk about that in just a second. These shields they have their own effects, most of them. Like, for example, the one I'm holding right now will deflect missiles or anything like that. But one thing they all have in common is that you can use them to protect yourself, and they don't overheat you when they stop the attack, which is pretty important, especially when you're being hit with very large attacks, like say Watchbot's ultimate, which shoots a giant laser out of his chest. You can block the whole thing for the most part without losing your overheat, so you pretty much don't take any damage. That's a big deal. So yeah, they're very useful in that regard.
Also, something to note, you can use these in two ways. You can actually use your normal shield with these shields, okay? And they will still break. But you can also just, like, if I were to charge my left arm, I actually can't. It just puts the shield up in my hand. I was just saying that so that you guys would know how to do that. It's in my left hand, so I just hold L1, and then it comes up in front of me.
Also, it's glitching me right now. Look at me. This makes my shield go
that's
to
weird.
my side. It's a pretty distinct advantage because you wouldn't know what I'm shielding with.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, when you're shielding like this with triangle, you cannot turn. The only way that I will turn is if I have my V-lock on him and he moves somewhere and then I let go for a second. We do that sometimes because they're trying to move around you to get to the side of your shield. Or if he punches
if I'm behind
me,
him, I can punch him.
Yeah. Or if he punches on the very side of my shield.
It'll turn him towards me.
Yeah, I broke my shield.
I'll show you. Punch me.
If I go to the very side of his... behind me.
Oh, I did the same thing as with the main shield. Okay. Okay.
It'll turn
him.
So that's the ways that you can turn. But when you have a shield in your hand, which both of us just broke, when you're using it, it will just turn. If you have U-lock on.
Yeah, if you're charging the... if you're charging that arm instead, if you're taking like the charge arm action, quote unquote, it'll just hold it in front of you. You can walk around and turn, and that's all great. So two final things. One is this little green canister here, probably called a coolant canister. I haven't actually found it yet in the databases of the mystery world, but it's really hard to figure out the names of all these things. So what this does is whenever you walk into it, it makes you glow green for a little while, and then every action that you take that makes your overheat go up does half of the actual amount of overheat that you would normally take.
Hey, lock on.
And so if you're locked on and running towards him, it takes and dashing towards him, it takes a quarter because you get two effects making you take half overheat.
I didn't even know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. And so then final thing is if I get knocked over and I just lay there, I'm like, oof. Okay, first off, when I'm laying on the ground, I can't take any damage. That can rarely be useful, but we'll talk about that another time. But another thing that you can do, if I knock him over and he presses X as soon as he hits the ground, he springs back up. And that's really nice for letting me just kind of have free reign on the map for 3 seconds. Or free reign right on his face, however I may choose to do so. But one thing that's really important is if he knocks me over like that and I spring up, look how high my overheat goes.
It goes up to half, and it doesn't stay there at all.
Over half, actually.
Well,
do that again.
It here, knock me over. It doesn't stay there. Like most things, like when he. Oh, sorry, yeah. When he, I was looking at his screen. When he hit me, it stayed there for a second and then went down. But when he knocks me over, I do that and it goes back down immediately. So it's not awful. But if you do that and then get up and start doing a bunch of stuff right away, you're gonna be at a big disadvantage because I mean, sorry, I tried to do that.
Here, just shoot me with your thingy.
Okay. It's just, it already is up. And
see, and now I'm already overheated and I can't do anything until my overheat goes
It's just
back
something to keep in mind. Bouncing back up after you get hit is awesome. We do it pretty much every time. Not all the time, because sometimes it's useful, but we'll talk about that later.
Rarely, yeah. We'll talk about that another time.
But,
well, that should pretty much be it, I would think.
yeah, I can't think of anything else that overheats you, actually.
Yeah. But I'm sure we'll find something because we're imperfect humans, just like everybody else. And we'll touch on them in later episodes, I guess. But until that point in time, I've been Honora.
I've been Redwind.
And see you guys next time.
Yes.